All right,
We are literally on top of each other. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to the Worch Show. This is episode -6. -6? Okay, we're done. No, we just did. We did one together. All right. -6. That's all right. We're back here. I got Fabiano on the episode. We got a second microphone. If you were watching the previous episode, we only had one microphone. Super weird, but we still wanted to try it. So now we're recording on 2 tracks, and Fabiano's got his own microphone now.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Glad to be here. I'm riding shotgun on this.
Looks, I think they say you got to like a fist away.
Yeah, it was kind of picking up. I boosted the volume so I could keep it down here.
Okay. I'm actually curious to see then how your volume's going to come out by boosting the volume, but being farther.
Would you rather me? Okay.
No, it was
all right. This will be another test.
another test, ladies and gentlemen. This is only a test.
Yeah. So
here we are, 2 bros.
Here we are, just doing what we do.
We don't have a plan. We were talking about relationships earlier.
Yeah, so we'll pick something else. We'll get there
on this podcast.
So
what was that company that we started together? We still
well, there's a couple. Let's point them out by March.
Let's just say, in reality, though, when I'm filming duo, it's not going to be both of us like this. We'll just be talking to each other, and the camera will be eavesdropping in on the conversation.
Okay.
So typically, this would not be.
It wouldn't be this intimate.
No, because we're both talking to the camera. It's just supposed to be you and I having a conversation to each other.
True. But since we're next to each other, I think it'd be good to just talk to the camera and right.
This is awful.
No,
let's talk about the company. One of the companies that we started, the photography company, Flash Pro Productions.
Yeah. We were all of that. Interesting motto, slogan. So I think that. What's the takeaway from that? The takeaway, I think, is even
what it is.
Well, so it was photography, right? It was mostly you. At the end of the day, I think you kind of ran with that one. You took an interest towards photography, and I think you really ran into that, ran with that. And even years later, I remember you would continuously learn and develop, and you were telling me about aperture, things I had no idea what you were discussing, which honestly, and we were talking about this the other day, I think that has served you very well over the years, including
Thank
now,
you, sir.
Including this production that you have a certain amount of skill that transferred all over the years, which is another concept we talk about, right? Which is anything you learn can serve you well in the future. Knowledge is, the knowledge is power concept, and anything can be applied in another direction for good use. So
how's it feel holding that microphone?
It feels good.
Yeah, we're missing an adapter on his microphone, so we couldn't get him a nice stand.
But yeah.
So you don't feel left out, right?
But when we don't believe in deterrence, so we make do with what we have
forward. So if our procrastinating versions of ourselves would say, we can't film the podcast, we don't have a stand, it's going to look bad, it's not going to be perfect, make sure your thumb's not scraping up against that. There we go. That little thumb, man. Yeah, so we started Flash Pro Productions, and basically that was every man's fantasy type business. We had this crazy idea that, man, I always wanted to start a company to take photos of models in swimsuits, and we're going to sell these posters. Now, this was an outdated concept from the 90s, but for some reason in 2009, we thought this was an original idea.
Yes.
So we go buy our first camera, and sure enough, we line up some models, which were friends of ours from college, and we started doing swimsuit photos in Deerfield Beach, Florida.
Yes.
That was our first business concept. And when I say business, we never made calendars, we never made posters. We never made a dime.
We did make a website of sorts.
We did.
But that ran into some roadblocks. Are we going to talk about the...
Let's
just... No, well, that's where we learned about SEO. So you can talk about that.
Yeah. So we didn't know about SEO and taglines, and when you...
What is SEO?
Search photos, search engine optimization. That's how you get found on search engines.
Okay.
At this point, we all know the concept of SEO. But in 2009, let's say, when we started this company, we didn't know that. We didn't know what meta tagging was. Let's just say on a photo of one of our participants, one of us, I won't say who, we decided to put a derogatory sexual tagline. And one of our mothers actually, so we posted this photo on Facebook, and the metadata showed up. Not even the title of the photo, the metadata, which we didn't realize was attached to the photo, We just thought we would post a photo.
We thought it was background nonsense, to be honest.
But it wasn't background.
No.
Facebook, I don't know if they do that now, but they actually published the metadata. And one of us gets a phone call from a mom one day and says, "Hey, Fabiano, what is there?"
So
What does, and I'm not going to say the phrase, mean? It was probably, I'm guessing, one of the most embarrassing times of one of our lives.
no, yeah, some of us had to explain ourselves in that moment. What did we learn? We learned that you can't predict how things are gonna be thrown at you, and you're gonna have to learn the hard way some lessons, and not to be embarrassed to try new things. I think that was another thing.
You don't know what you don't know.
We took that one on the chin, and we kept it going. But it was definitely an interesting learning lesson on the internet and how the SEO works.
That was an interesting learning lesson. We ended up doing a series of weddings and product photography, and nobody, and I mean nobody, wanted to hire us to take photos of them in their swimsuits. Actually, I think I got chastised. Remember marketing class?
Yeah.
I had spammed a bunch of flyers, and it was a seminar class with 300 people, and that was one of the only classes you could get all the email addresses for the class. And I was like, I'm going to spam this. I'm going to say, hey, casting call, looking for models. you did the impression of the teacher the best.
Oh, well, I forgot what she said.
Basically, the teacher.
Oh, yes, I remember. So it's a college-level marketing class, 300 people in an auditorium. You had just sent out the blast email to everybody, pretty much putting out the casting call. And the marketing professor decided to use it as an example for marketing. And in her lesson, she goes, oh, like, I'm sure you all received this email from this photography company about casting call. And she goes, should you call them? No, do not call them.
Do not call them, girls. And I think it said looking for hot models who want to take photos in swimsuit or something like a very typical college stud type thing to say.
Our motivations were very aligned with the college approach.
Very much approach. But again, so we got publicly chastised.
Yes.
In front of our college professor and all of our peers of about 300 people.
To one of our friends' credits, he did speak up on our call and said, no, I know the guy. He's not a bad guy. So
that was a good lesson, because one of our homeboys, I didn't even know he was in the class until later, but he did stand up and say, I know the guys. They're good. It's a real thing.
Yeah. So what's the lesson there? I think public embarrassment is a thing. People will criticize you. You may not take the best approach, but if you build a solid foundation and you introduce the concept and show people along the way, you will slowly win over people who can vouch for you.
That was before shaming was a thing also. So nowadays there would be this big shame movement.
Yeah, we just missed it, thankfully.
We just missed it. We just missed, or maybe we did. Maybe we couldn't capitalize.
We're the pioneer.
We was going to get a teacher fired or something. We just missed it. So public shaming, no one cared about that. Yeah. Back then, about 10 or 15 years ago, it was normal to do it. And lesson learned.
Lesson learned for sure. No, but I think that then also with moving ahead, I still think, like we said, when we set out on this photography business, we never got any business, any work, but you did get all of the skill sets that were required for it, which you're utilizing today with your podcast, and you've utilized along the way with your business, with the coffee shop, marketing, branding. So even with that seemingly, let's call it immature college approach to business, there's a permanent benefit that we're able to tap into.
One of the biggest takeaways I saw is that we always had a knack, you and I, for some type of creative arts type thing, which is a business in itself. Business is you're creating something from scratch, right? When you're thinking of a business or an idea, you have a vision in your mind and you put it on your canvas, and a canvas in business is the product itself or the service that you're offering. So we always had a knack in creating that. That's why you've got your music, your musician. So we've always had a knack for the creative arts, and you just got to do it, folks. If you just have to do it, you don't know where it's going to take you, what skill sets you're going to be required to develop along the way, and how you'll stack those skill sets one on top of each other. And at some point, you're going to use these skill sets. But if you don't start the journey, you're never going to get down the road to where you want to be or where you could be, because you're just not starting.
Exactly. And I think actually I just had a thought of taking opportunities as they come. And, you know, sometimes I think the entrepreneur mindset is like you're pushed to be like, oh, immediately start selling or monetizing, making money. No, there's a learning curve that you have to get through. And what I'm remembering is you actually helped my sister. My sister got married, and when she wanted someone to have interesting, you know, interview style videos of all the guests and saying, oh, you know, a couple questions. How did you meet the couple, my sister and my brother-in-law? She came to you and said, Mark, I know you've done this. Can you please be in charge of that? And so we created a great moment for my sister. Has a permanent memory for her and my brother-in-law based on the creativity and the filmography aspect.
And if I recall, the memory was we should have hired a professional
Yes.
and not some college kid with a camera. Because I think we just hit record and we just ran around. We were probably drunk by the end of the night.
Yes.
If I do remember, I drove David's brand new, what was it, Infiniti G35.
Yes. He shouldn't have allowed that.
No, he shouldn't have allowed that while filming. So that was an interesting experience. But the point is, like, we were able to still add value.
Yes.
And we just went out there. We were like, okay, this is the point of this, starting a business. So let's take this camera and let's just do it.
Yes.
And we had no business being hired or approached by anyone to film anything, but we still did it.
Exactly. And we didn't try to. I think there's a value in not portraying yourself as a you know, some highly accomplished professional when you're starting out. People are cheering for you along the way, as long as they see you're authentic and sincere. We didn't show up and say we're professional filmographers and we're going to do this and that. We just showed up and said, hey, we're enthusiastic about trying to see if we can get something good for you. And people will cheer for you as long as you don't try to be, I think, something you're not.
I think that's interesting, though, but I think we both can agree. People do, and you're all going to be able to relate to this, people do cheer for you, but at the same time, they'll cheer for you until you start doing better than them. And then there's actually a lot of people. We had one example. We started a T-shirt company. It's another crazy idea that we had.
Tell me about no name situation.
Tell them about a mutual. Well, it's really your friend.
Yeah, so
acquaintance of mine.
So after the photography business didn't take off as we had planned, we said the next venture is T-shirts with our own brand. It was for menswear, you know. So
what was the name of that company?
So it was inspired by the strength of a rooster. So it was called Top Cock Alpha Wear.
Top Cock Alpha Wear, and then later got changed to Alpha Mafia.
The Alpha Mafia. So
tell them about the story.
But yeah, so I was discussing this new venture that Mark and I were going to be starting with this menswear brand, and I mentioned it to a coworker at the time. I worked at a tax firm, and his response was, don't even try it. It's not going to work. I tried it, and you can't make a T-shirt business work. And of course, I the first thing I went was told Mark about this interesting interaction that I had, and how, so the lesson that we took from it, what was the lesson?
Why it's just interesting though, because somebody tries something, and who knows what this person even did, what they mean by tried. Like, they printed a couple T-shirts, they didn't sell, so they stopped. But why is it, what is it about people that this kid, he said he tried something, and then he was unsuccessful about it. Why didn't he take the route and say, you know, I started a T-shirt company. These are 3 things I learned. Why it didn't work out for me. Watch out for these speed bumps. And these are 3 things I would have done differently when I started my T-shirt company. You guys should consider doing these things. I think you'll find success. Why didn't this kid take that approach, as opposed to saying, it didn't work out for me, so it's not going to work out for you? I think we just naturally, we don't want to see people doing better than us. So he set this limiting belief, like, it didn't work out for me. I hope it doesn't work out for you guys, because if it does, I'm going to feel horrible about myself because I couldn't make it happen.
Yeah, and so I think that's the one thing we always use to check ourselves, is we never want to kill anybody's dreams. If someone has a vision for something that we don't understand how they're going to make it happen, that just means we're not as familiar as them. I think we take that approach. Because by you shutting down someone's idea because you tried it and you didn't make it work, you're also projecting an unintentional or maybe even intentional arrogance that's just not a good characteristic to have. It's not a likable personality trait.
Mm-hmm.
But
And I think if you look at all great leaders in history, everyone around them found success. People would be around that. For me, that's one of the things I notice about a great leader is the people around a great leader. Perhaps maybe that person is not succeeding by typical standards, but everyone around that person is doing really well, and that person is giving so much value. And I think that's one of the great traits of a leader is that look at your friends group. Are your friends succeeding in what they do? Or are they failing? Perhaps maybe you could be a better leader in your friends group by encouraging them and lifting each other up. And maybe like we just started this group, we meet once a month. There's 6 guys. And the whole point of this is to pool resources together. And we all have we have a shared respect for each other. We have a similar entrepreneurial, creative background. And the idea is to pool resources together and share our information and knowledge and just lift each other up. And I think, and bounce ideas off of each other. Tell each other, this is what I'm working on right now. I can't figure out this problem or this challenge in business or even personal life. And then we brainstorm together. What do you guys think? How can I make this better? Tell me 3 things. Why does it suck? Tell me why it sucks and how it could be better. Just brutally honest, but then we're growing and we're getting, it's not like your idea sucks because it makes me feel better about myself. Your idea sucks because of this, and here's how it could be better. You're going to win, and I'm going to win because I'm your friend. I'm going to benefit from that. I'm going to watch you learn from what you're doing, and I'm taking that knowledge and I can apply it to my ideas.
Exactly. It's the concept of constructive criticism. And step 1 for you to find your tribe, your group of people that will give you constructive criticism is to see that they have the mentality for construction, because anyone can criticize everything. It's what everyone does all day. But there's only a select 10% maybe of the people maybe even less, that will actually try to give you constructive criticism. That means they see and want to help in your vision.
Right. I think it's hard to get that sometimes. You also got to be in a place where instead of trying to be perfect, just know that you suck when you start something. Fabiano and I were just talking about this, and he asked me, he was standing outside when I was recording 2 episodes ago, and he said, how did it go? And I said, man, I suck at being on camera. I suck at all this. And I was like, but I should suck. This is my 4th episode ever. I shouldn't sound like I've recorded 1,000 episodes. I should suck. So those are my expectations for myself. I should suck. And the only expectation is that I hit record and we start doing this and we start having a dialogue on camera, which is the purpose of a video podcast. And that's the only expectations I have. So I think when you're starting off and you're asking someone to give you constructive criticism, you got to drop the ego. That's one thing that him and I both, Fabiano and I, talked a lot about. We had to drop our egos, take that criticism, because the goal or the mission is to get better. It's not to be perfect. It's not to feel good. It's to literally get better. Everything that we record, every episode that we record, any business we get, any conversation we have, we come out better at the other end. So that's the expectation. So it's always a win. And then you actually, when you're getting this feedback and realizing that you're doing something that sucks, you come out better and you're like, oh, I feel great from that criticism. You actually want more criticism. I remember I gotten to the point where when I meet new friends or have clients come into the coffee shop, I ask them, tell me 3 things that you hate about this business, what sucks. Because I'm not getting anything if you just kiss my ass and tell me, oh, this is great, and tell me about the food and this is good. Like, I'm not learning from that. I want to know what sucks, because you're going to tell me what's missing right away, right? Talk about how it's so easy. Why is it so easy for humans to see biologically the bad things first? What's going on there?
Yeah, I think comfort being, when things are going smoothly, it's like, okay, we almost assume that, oh, that's fine. That's a natural state, almost like we shouldn't give it the credit that it deserves. But when things go wrong, we feel that much more intensely, which is what we also talk about with your coffee shop. The very few negative interactions that someone has, they're much more inclined to go and try to leave a public review. But the 100 people that had great interactions might not even think to go on Google and give a 5-star review. So there's a disproportionate lean that humans tend to have towards negativity. But I think bringing it back to trying things and building new things, you have to just understand that that's how people work, and you have to you do have to kind of develop a bit of an immunity to it, and part of it starts with believing in what your vision is. It's an experiment. It's something you're growing. Even, if anyone can derail it, you really won't have a chance.
Yeah, and here's one of the things that helped me. I'll listen to anyone, or I'll hear them out, what they have to say. Perhaps I can extract some information from there. But ask yourself, if someone's giving you criticism, constructive criticism, ask yourself, does that person, do they have results that you want? And they're giving you advice, but is it credible advice? Right? Because someone could give you advice and they've never done it before, but it's actually a good piece of information and it's good advice. But then others are like, well, that person, they're giving me advice on running a coffee shop. Okay, do they have a successful business themselves? Where is this advice coming from? Or is this just something? It doesn't mean they can't give you good advice because they don't have a business on their own. But are they getting results that you want somewhere in their life that they're actually? So kind of peel those layers and ask them, like, okay, you're giving me that. Where's this coming from? Did you learn this from somewhere? Where are you getting this? Or it's so obvious just to anyone, because maybe you hear the same constructive criticism from a bunch of different people. So that's data that you're collecting. And you're like, okay, everyone I ask, the last 9 out of 10 people, they said this exact same thing. So maybe there's some truth to it.
Yeah. I guess I just had another thought about one of the things I tend to look for with people who are offering me constructive criticism. I think the people that tend to be the most interested in actually providing helpful criticism, I notice they tend to ask more questions of you. They try to get a better picture of what you're trying to achieve, even if they have no idea about that area, like me with music. Someone may not understand anything about music, but if I'm talking about a particular goal I'm trying to accomplish, the most interested people, the ones that tend to want to provide the best advice they can based on their life, that they will tend to ask more questions so they can get an understanding of what I'm even trying to accomplish, versus just immediately start giving me advice almost as if it's a cookie cutter thing.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a cue I look for, is people who ask curiosity and asking questions.
I think that's how you could tell right away if someone has experience with anything they've done. Right away, that's perfect. They'll start asking questions about, well, what are you trying to accomplish? Because then they know, you know for sure that they've done something similar, a similar challenge or something. It's kind of like when you start talking about information or knowledge that you know in your career, and then someone's still in college or doesn't have a career yet, they kind of discount all the information that you know of 10 years. Whereas someone who could be 5 years into a career, they're like, wow, I'm in a career, or I'm in a business, I've engaged in something that takes a long period of time. So I can relate to that person. So I actually respect that person because I've done X amount of time. So, I don't know where I'm going with this.
No, I think I'm thinking of, I forget what it's called, but it's a psychological effect where the people that tend to know the least about something, ironically, tend to have the most confidence about it. But as you get further in your career, sometimes you'll be like, I've been doing this 10 years. Sometimes I feel like an imposter. I doubt so.
Dunning-Kruger.
Yes, exactly. Yes. That one. So I think what you're saying is the people that are asking questions and looking into it, they are comparing it to their life where they had to develop a skill and learn something, so they understand the amount of information that's typically required to provide valuable advice.
Yeah, I mean, a perfect example with the Dunning-Kruger effect. Have you ever met someone who knows a lot about something? They're expert in that field by their peers, by your standards. And you've heard the expression, the more I learn, the less I feel that I know. And that's a perfect example of the Dunning-Kruger effect. I say that, the first 10 hours of doing something, you learn a lot of information about something that you never knew, and you're overwhelmed. So all of a sudden you feel like you're an expert at something. But then as you learn more information about that, you're no longer overly confident, and you realize, wow, I've gotten deeper in this rabbit hole of this topic. And it turns out I don't know anything about this. And then the bell curve starts to slant back up, because then you become 10,000 or 20,000 hours in that proficiency. And then you become an expert at that.
Exactly. So yeah. All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the Mark Worch Show, episode -6. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.
I had to do it. Yeah.